Hi, I'm Angeline, and I'm hanging out with Gali today, aka Galimatias. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
How are you? Where are you hanging out these days?
I'm doing good. I'm in Los Angeles right now. I just moved from one place to another. I finally found like a house. I was living in an apartment for a long time, so
hmm
this is like the first time that I have a proper studio that's not in my bedroom, which is really nice.
So, looking back at 2020, how would you sort of summarize the year?
Um, I mean, I personally, I can't complain because I'm in a position where I was already working from home all the time, and
hmm
my day to day wasn't very much impacted uh, by by COVID. So I I really it wasn't too much different for me.
hmm
So I'm very lucky in that regard, and I've been continuing to make music and put out the album recently. So I'm
hmm
just kind of pushing forward and continuing working,
hmm
and yeah, it's been pretty good for me.
So, speaking of sort of being an introvert, what was it like releasing "Laying Low," which I read somewhere that you called an introvert's dream?
Yeah, I mean yeah, it felt good to get that one out because it had been sitting for a while. I actually had made it with my buddy Jappe from Denmark, who was out here in 2019,
hmm
and we started it way back then, and then I just felt like it didn't fit on the album, but it was still like a really nice song to me. So, but for the album, it was like a very specific like sound and narrative that I was trying to follow. So there was a bunch of tracks that I just didn't want to force into that
hmm
milieu. So I mean, same thing for Shy Dancer, which just came out, and then I have another one too that's gonna be coming out soon. But yeah, it felt good. It was nice to yeah get it out
Yeah.
there.
No, I really like the track. I mean, with Shy Dancer too, I feel like the name doesn't really match the song, I guess, just because it doesn't make me want to be a shy dancer. It makes me want to be at like a really like at a club and it's like towards the end of the night and I'm like with some guy or something and I'm like, okay, all your music is like this though. It's all very seductive to me. So I
Nice.
I, I don't hate it. I love it. So
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
no problem. So again, like I said, all your tracks seem to be seductive. That's definitely how I've felt about it. And your album sort of is that way too, but it's also very cinematic. When I was listening to it, I like to listen to artist albums from start to finish. Despite the fact that I listen to my music on shuffle, when artists come out with new music, I listen from start to finish. And when I was listening to it, it made it seem like there were like three acts to the album. And I wanted to like know if that's sort of how you made the album that way or like, explain that a little bit. Like the story that you were trying to tell,
Yeah.
have listeners go on.
Yeah, there's definitely a very prominent beginning act that is like the first track to the fourth track.
hmm
And then after that, I haven't really thought specifically in divide in the lines of which would divide the latter two, but
hmm
I sort of just worked on the songs, throughout a couple years, and then it was kind of like a giant puzzle trying to like map out if there were certain connections I could make and if there was
hmm
coherence between certain themes that made sense to put together. So I just kind of laid it out as I thought would make most sense, and then I just spent a lot of time doing transitions in between the tracks. That was something that I'd always wanted to do, and I think
hmm
just makes the experience more immersive when you can't really like it. Yeah, I want it to feel like you can just listen to the whole thing for 30 minutes and not really know when one track starts and one track
hmm
ends, and it's just kind of like a
It's
like a
seamless.
continuous, yeah,
Yeah.
seamless
That's
experience.
totally how I
um
felt. Like I was when I was listening to it, I was like, I don't even know what the names of the songs are because they all blend so very well together.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, so I'm glad you felt that way.
Yeah, no, and I loved that. And I loved that, with some of the tracks too, like for instance, like Room 332. I can talk.
Yeah.
With room 332, you know, it's this whole piano ensemble. It's like it's a break from everything else that's happening on the album, and I kind of wanted to like know why you decided to sort of add that in there.
Yeah, that was kind of impulsive. I was reading this biography on Claude Debussy, the
Hmm.
French impressionist composer, and um, I I was reading that every morning for a while, and when I was reading it, I was listening to French impressionism at the same time. So like Eric Satie and Claude Debussy, of course, and just like different orchestral music from that era. So I was very much just in that zone when I would sit down to work later. And one day I just started with that piano thing, and it just kind of evolved into a whole piece. And I was like, why not include it on the album? It felt like very solitary to me. Like it kind of felt like you were like just by yourself
Hmm.
somewhere,
Hmm.
and that fit perfectly into the narrative of where I left off with the song before and where it was going to with the song after, everywhere and every time. So so I was like, yeah, why not?
So, switching gears a little bit, I wanted to sort of talk about, you know, the concept of being an extroverted introvert, which sort of fits you and your music because, you know, you're a performer, so you have to be extroverted. But at the same time, you seem to be extremely introverted and you seem to enjoy that and love it. So, I wanted to sort of like talk about like your journey, um, literally finding your voice the last couple of years, especially since you're singing on the album and singing on your latest tracks like Laying Low and Shy Dancer.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely am more on the introverted side as a
Hmm.
person. And I haven't done that many shows. You know,
Hmm.
I came out here originally to do some shows with Alina Barras for Urban Flora. That's kind of what brought me here initially.
Hmm.
But since then, I started working on all this solo stuff shortly after, and haven't done any shows. I was kind of planning to do it
Hmm.
around this time, but then COVID happened. But I I think it was just sort of a natural progression for me to try to always figure out new realms within music to sort of battle with. And
Hmm.
I had kind of done a little bit of like vocal stuff in the past, but I didn't really like seriously start doing it until 2017, which was when I no, I think Blowback came out in 2018. Um, but yeah, I like to just be humbled by anything, by any like a new sort of aspect of music, and diving in deep and trying to learn whatever I can. So singing was like the perfect next chapter to my musical journey, or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And
Wait,
I love it because it's it's very it's very challenging. Like you just realize how difficult it actually is to like convey emotion through singing. Even just like the sheer technique of singing, because I feel like the lyrics, that comes to me a bit more intuitively, but
hmm.
like the technique of singing, just like practice, and that's been the most challenging thing to me, and I like that.
What do you have planned for the new year? Like, I guess like New Year's celebration and like the new year that's coming up.
In terms of New Year's celebration, I haven't thought too much of that because, yeah, I mean, for obvious
Do you
reasons, again, I
usually
feel like the climate
do you usually like sleep through like the midnight,
though
like the year changing,
in
I guess?
Denmark, usually New Year's is popping in Denmark. People take
Yeah.
that stuff very seriously. I was kind of surprised by how little attention New Year's gets over here in the
Hmm.
US, or at least here in California. I mean, that's different too because you guys have some serious fire hazards and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if you experience New Year's Eve in like Copenhagen or something, it's pretty wild. There's like just like a carpet of color on top of the whole city on New Year's Eve, and it's like a big party. Everybody always parties crazy on New Year's Eve. But yeah, now that I'm over here, I'm probably just gonna. I could see myself like making music with my buddy or something. It's probably just gonna be super chill, and
Yeah.
I love that too.
Yeah. Hopefully you have at least like a little bottle of champagne or something to sort of celebrate. Or if you don't drink
Yeah.
alcohol, then like sparkling water or something.
Yes. I'll find a way.
Yeah, you'll figure something out. So, what do you have planned coming up, like music wise, career wise, or even like personally for like the next few months?
Um, just continuing to experiment with new music and
Hmm.
kind of like figuring out what the next body of work is going to be. Um, I try and work on stuff every day pretty much, and I'm just kind of trying different things out and waiting for whatever
Hmm.
amounts to. I'm waiting for like an idea that I love, because I have a lot of ideas that I like, but I'm waiting for the idea that I'll love.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of like going fishing or something. You might have to wait a while until something shows up. But that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue working on stuff, experimenting, and then yeah, hopefully something will surface.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully you find inspiration, find something that you love that will inspire you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for hanging out. I had a great time. I'm such a big fan, so this is kind of a dream come true.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.